Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Good Talkers podcast. Potty people, I am Deanna Cooney, and as always, I am joined by the now giggling and always delightful Tessa Livingston.
Ahoy, hoy.
The also giggling and also epically delightful Ashton Haugen.
Ahoy, ahoy.
And producer Jordan, are you going to hit us with an ahoy, ahoy also?
No, I'm going with hello.
Oh.
Dare to be different.
Love it, love it, love it.
You do you, boo.
Today we are talking about voiceover and mental health, and it's a really, really big deal, right? But before we get into it, Ashton was telling us about something really exciting that she was watching just before we got started, and I want you all to hear about it. So, Ashton, take it away. Tell us what you've just been watching.
I was just right before we hopped on this, I was watching the live stream of the Game Awards, which is a big night for video games and creators, and they give out a bunch of awards and everything. And so the first award of the night actually was going to Best Performance of like the year, which, you know, as a voice actor, that's like the one I want to see the most. And the person that came out to present this award was Al Pacino. Yeah. And it was like, everyone was like, whoa. And like, admittedly, he says like, hey, I don't play video games, but I have watched my kids play a lot of video games. And he's like, the stories that you are able to tell, you know, through video games and your vocal performance have just blown me away. And it was so, like, validating to me. You know what I mean? Like, yes, Al Pacino is finally, like, validating, you know, the voice acting and video games community. And it was awesome. And Christopher Judge won for God of War. And he's just, I mean,
wow.
Talk about a performance. Like, just, wow. If you have not heard him as Kratos in God of War, it's just like mind-blowing the things that this man has done with this character.
In what way? Tell me, because like I'm really only just getting into playing video games, and it's mostly because my like 16-year-old's kind of dragging me in there, you know.
So your 16-year-old, probably knows.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
So God of War is a video game franchise. They've done several games in the past, and they just released like a new one this year. And Christopher Judge has played Kratos, which is the main character in the God of War franchise. He's literally the God of War. Yeah. And it's a very heavily story-driven video game where without giving too many like spoilers, in the past, like there's a bunch of stuff with his wife, and then like he has a son, and like you get to see him be like a father, but he's still like the God of War, so he's like this big like God of War guy, but he's like also a father, and like just like it's one of the most emotional video game performances that I've ever seen come out of like a character who is like 8 foot tall and like all muscle and like bald and like, you know, just like the scariest looking dude. He's got like war paint all over his face and like grayish skin. But like it's the emotional impact that this character has if you follow him through his whole story. That's amazing,
right? Because it's obviously been, and you know, performance all the way, right? Like it doesn't matter what the writing is. If the performance isn't to the same level, then you're not going to get the same impact. But it's amazing for me to hear that level of care has gone into the creation of a character and the writing of the character and the narrative bits that happen during a game. That's a thing that's changed a lot recently, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah. And it's when Christopher Judge was actually giving his speech, his like acceptance speech, he said, you know, he's like, I started out as like, you know, just a traditional actor in LA, just doing my thing, auditioning for all kinds of stuff. And he's like, I must have been the last person in LA in California to audition for this role. And this was probably, I don't know, like 15 years ago or something like that when he originally auditioned for like the first game. Yeah. And so he's like, and if you would have told me back then that it was for a video game, I might have not auditioned. But today, that would be completely a different story. And I'm so thankful that it is. So like, it was a really cool speech he gave too. If you haven't seen it, look it up. Really just awesome moment for voice actors and gaming and all of that stuff. Really cool.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I
That's
love-
awesome.
I love that story. But do you know what my favourite thing in that entire thing was, Ashton? Listening to you go, grrr.
Well, because there's no way I could like imitate this wonderful actor's voice. There's no way. Like, this is what I sound like. There, I can't be Kratos. Yes, I'm Kratos. Like, no, there's no way.
And it was the arms as well. Oh.
He's a very like burly, muscly character.
Yeah.
You have to get into it, you know?
Oh, it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
Do you know, I not long ago I was asked if I could voice something for a freelance client, and they wanted a really like epic, like goddess style kind of read, big and powerful, and I couldn't do it. It's like my voice just doesn't go there, right? Like I have like depth and I have gravel, but my voice works really, really well in intimate stuff, right? Generating that big, huge, boomy thing was really, really hard for me. And it was really interesting to be challenged in that way. And, you know, I'm sure there's the potential for me to do that at some point with some training and with some like working out the mechanics of it and stuff. But it's probably the first time I've bumped up against something and gone, oh, shit, I really can't do that.
Wow. I'm even trying to like imagine what that sounds like. And
That might be part of the problem.
that, because usually you don't get like big, boomy female characters. You know what I mean?
Female,
So like,
yeah.
That's
it
true.
was like one day when someone asked me, they're like, oh, can you do a female pirate voice? And I was like, does that exist? I don't know. Can you think of a female pirate voice?
Well, I immediately go to wench, right, in my head.
Oh, see,
But that doesn't necessarily mean pirate.
no, because so I gave it like a little go. They're like, like Jack Sparrow pirate, but like a girl, and I was like, I don't know how that exists. And when I did it, like it turned into like a Irish kind of sounding, because it had those heavy R's which I could put into it, and
Yeah.
it had that sort of sound. But I just remember being like, does female pirate, because they're not represented, like I don't even know, because they
Not
were
very
like
often.
they were like like Keira Knightley but piratey, and I was like, I don't understand.
Keira Knightley, but piratey.
I
Even
did
Keira
not-
Knightley wasn't piratey in the piratey movies.
No, she was still like, Keira Knightley, like that. It's not a pirate.
What are you going to do? Add an R in?
And you can't add an R into that accent because it doesn't have one.
No.
So I was like, I don't know what you're asking from me. I don't know what to do.
Okay, well, that actually makes me feel a lot better. I'm really glad I shared that story. And interestingly, this is an excellent segue point into what we're talking about today, because we're talking about mental health, right, and voiceover.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is challenging as a voiceover talent is being asked to do a thing. And one, not knowing if you can, and maybe two, finding out that you can't. And then how do you manage yourself through that process? How do you manage client expectations? How do you manage your own expectations? I know that after that experience, there were definitely some thoughts in my head about like, oh, fuck, I'm a terrible voiceover talent, right? Like I can't be a voice actor. I can do commercials and that's it. Right? I mean, I talked myself through it and it was fine, but it was a really interesting mental challenge to work my way through that, So we're going to talk more about that kind of stuff today. And it's a really important thing for us to discuss, because particularly people working in creative fields, it can be really, really tough, that challenge of maintaining your mental health. When you're in something that requires a lot of you emotionally, it means you're just kind of more open to all the emotional stuff. You feel all the fucking feels all the fucking time, right? Which can get a bit overwhelming, right?
It requires a lot of isolation too.
Yes.
And that's like compiling against all of that self-direction, isolation. It can get really weary really, really quick. And when you're in those spots, far out, is it hard to get your motivation back up?
Yeah, totally. I have lots of conversations like this with clients, and like coaching clients, but also people I mentor and that kind of thing. And that isolation, rejection, like the imposter syndrome thing. There's a whole bunch of ways that our brain messes with us in this kind of environment. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about whether it's, shaping us into being more resilient people, or whether it's showing up where we need to work on ourselves. Because I think imposter syndrome is actually a bit of a signpost, right? Like it can just be, shitty thoughts in your head, but it also could be pointing to actually a space where, oh, maybe I need to do a bit more work on this particular thing.
Do you know, that's so interesting. You know what someone said to me literally yesterday? Where you become more afraid is where you need to go.
Yeah.
So like not necessarily being like, oh no, what did she? Oh, it's gone out of my head, team. It's gone.
Okay.
It was such a good saying. It was, it's not the kind of thing where you just want to say no to something because you don't enjoy it. It's saying no and having all of those bubbling feelings that go around it. That's the kind of fear that she was talking about. And she's like, where you feel more afraid is where you need to dig into it because that's the shit that matters.
Yeah, jealousy's the same, I reckon. Like if you're looking around and you're like, oh, I'm so jealous of that person and what they're achieving.
Yeah.
You can either completely fucking ignore it and go, stop being jealous, that's what bad people do. Or you can go, oh, why am I jealous? You know, like what is it about this that's drawing me in? What do I want there? What is it? Is it the money? Is it the jobs? Is it the success? Is it the happiness? Like what is it about what I'm seeing that I want, that I desperately want to chase after and then go after that, you know? So
Yeah, I just to piggyback on Tessa's kind of a story about you know, chasing the things that make you afraid. I feel like the best things that I think have come out of like my life and my career have been the things that have made me the most afraid. Like jumping in with 2 feet into this career with no safety net was one of the best things I ever did. Even getting with you 3 and starting this podcast, it was terrifying a little bit. You know what I mean? You don't know. You don't know how it's going to go. This could have been a disaster. I mean, thankfully it wasn't. Like, I think it's pretty awesome. But it could have been, it was really scary to, you know, put yourself out there and make something. And so I guess I'm really fortunate that I feel like I've always like gone back to what I feel like I know the definition of bravery to be. And the definition of bravery is not being unafraid. The definition of bravery is being afraid and doing the thing anyway.
yes.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, I feel like at the times that I've been brave to do these things is I've reaped the most rewards from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Me too.
Absolutely. You know, taking action even when you're scared, that's one of the things that builds resilience. And you don't have to be successful, whatever your definition of success is, after you take the action. It's actually the taking of the action, even when you're feeling frightened, that builds the resilience. You know, like having whatever that successful kind of outcome is after taking the action is like a bit of a reward. But learning from it, if you don't necessarily hit what you mark as success, is just as rewarding if you can look at it that way, you know.
Well,
but
and we have our own definitions of success.
Yeah, exactly.
Like success can be so many different things.
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
I think what's interesting in that as well is that, because this is something that I'm working with a lot, is being afraid of a choice and being brave enough to make that choice regardless. But because there's that feeling of I'm afraid, I don't see the bravery, I just see the afraid. So even when I make a brave choice, I still go, but I was afraid, so it probably wasn't as successful as it could have been because I was afraid, rather than going, look at the fucking thing you just chose to do even though you were terrified, which I think is might be something that other people experience because we don't. I'm not even sure how to end this sentence, but it's such a strong negative feeling of the fear that the positive thing that you do can sometimes get overridden and you forget to celebrate the thing that you actually did.
Yeah, that's really interesting, right? Because that speaks to the way that you feel about fear, not so much about the way that you feel about the thing that you're fearful of.
Yeah.
Right? And that's actually a pretty simple thing to manage. That's just really about reframing that feeling about fear, right? And if you are, it's funny, if you're afraid of fear.
That's a good sentence.
Right? Like, if you have like negative ideas attached to fear or sort of contractive ideas about fear, if you go, oh, I'm scared, that means I'm this, right? That means I'm a bad person, or it means I'm a sook or a wuss or any of those kinds of things, then yeah, that's going to be the overriding feeling that colours all of the actions that you take that come from that place of fear, you know? So I think it's really important to tackle that, right? You can keep doing things despite being fearful, right? And
Yeah.
that's great. You're taking brave actions. But if in your head all you can think about is, I shouldn't have been scared in the first place, right? This is terrible. I shouldn't have been scared. I should have just been able to do it anyway. What the fuck is wrong with me, right? If that's what's going on in your head, that's going to be the pervasive underlying sense that goes with all of those actions.
100%. Yeah.
And you need to remember that fear in and of itself is not necessarily a bad emotion or like a character flaw.
Absolutely.
Fear is what has kept us as humans surviving for, thousands of years. So it's a survival mechanism that is a good thing, that you just can't let it control you. So like in our little brains, we have our amygdala, which can sometimes revert back to like our caveman days when we were being chased by lions and, things like that. And that's not necessarily a common thing that, people are afraid of now. I don't usually get anxiety thinking that a lion's going to bust down my door and, eat my family. Even though back in like caveman days, that was a real
thing.
fear,
That was a thing.
that was a real thing to be afraid of. But my little primitive amygdala brain doesn't know the difference between that and going into an audition that I really want, or being afraid to go out for that role that I really want. My brain doesn't know the difference between those two things. So I feel like even just understanding that fact, that, this maybe just be my overactive amygdala, like take a breath, helps tremendously.
Yeah. And the other thing is, actually, social exclusion is on par with a lion knocking down your door. Back in caveman days, if you didn't have the support of the herd, right? Yeah. If you didn't have the support of the group that you were with, you died, right? One of the first sort of, I don't know if this is like a generally accepted thing, but someone once asked an anthropologist what she thought the first sign of human civilization was. And she said it was a healed femur bone, right? In a skeleton. Right?
Yes, yeah.
Because
interesting.
like prior to that, people had broken bones and died with broken bones because they got left behind because nobody took them with them, right? But this healed femur bone said this person broke their leg and were cared for through their convalescence and their healing and their like recovery and stuff, right? And what that shows is that humans started taking care of each other, or primates, or whatever it was that it happened in,
Right.
And that just supports that concept that like it makes sense these days that if we think we're going to be shunned by society on a primitive level, that means we die.
Yeah.
And our brain's job is literally to keep us alive, one, and procreate, two, right? Like they're the only two really like primitive drivers that we have in our life, So, and our brain is always on the lookout for threats, because they're the things that slow us down and get in our way. So really it's just your brain doing its job. It's just going, hey, by the way, that thing could be really, really bad for you. That thing could result in like exclusion and death and all sorts of bad things. But like you said, Ashton, it's really important that we don't let that fear drive us. We need to acknowledge that it's there, acknowledge that it's normal. It happens to everybody. And I want to talk more about imposter syndrome in a second. It literally happens to everybody for your entire life, right? And when you get a handle on that as a concept and decide, because you have to decide, that you are able and allowed and functionally capable of making decisions that aren't driven by that fear. You can be afraid, you can have the most intense fear in the world and still do a thing, right? But you have to practice that shit.
Yeah.
You have to practice it. If every time you're scared, you don't take action, what you're practicing is not taking action when you're scared. You're just reinforcing it.
Totally agree. And I feel like it's interesting that you mention like the isolation part as being part of that fear, because this can be a very isolating career for a lot of people. And if you don't reach out and find your people, it's makes it so much more difficult. I feel like a really good way to combat that is just to find your people, to find your people who you connect with, find your people who understand, who get it, be part of a community that gets you and understands, because I feel like it's so important to battling some of these mental health things that we all go through.
Yeah. Shall we talk about some specifics? Like, we can talk about the isolation thing. We can talk about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, I think the concept of your work being the same as your identity, that's a real problem. I think that leads to all sorts of isolation and issues and stuff. I read a quote from Sam Neill. I'm pretty sure it was Sam Neill.
I love
Tessa's
Sam
going,
Neill. I'm sorry. Kiwi! Yeah, famous Kiwi! That's literally what came in through my head as you said
your
that.
horn then, just for the Kiwi call.
Yeah, can I have a horn on that one too?
Kiwi.
So I'm pretty sure it was Sam Neill in an interview that he did. And he was talking about the fact that, you know, one of the things that we tend to do as creatives, because being creative is a really integral part of who we are, right? And often creatives find themselves really pursuing things that they love, right? Like, no one pursues creative things because they think it's going to make them lots and lots of money and they're going to be like super successful, right? Like, there's a very narrow band of like humans at the top of that particular fucking mountain, right? So we tend to pursue things that we love, that mean a lot to us, that light fires inside of us, right? And so because of that, the things that we do often get integrated into our idea of who we are, right? And we walk around, we say, I'm an actor, I'm a voice actor, right? But what happens when you're not acting? What happens between gigs? What happens between voiceover jobs? You know, what are you then? And if you don't have a way of relating to yourself as separate from the thing that you do, then you're in lots and lots of trouble if anything happens to the thing that you do. An example of this would be a voice talent losing their voice for some reason, right? Like, I haven't had this happen to me around work very much, but I've had it happen in other ways. I am really athletic in my normal life, right? Like, I rock climb, I play heaps and heaps of sports. And for like a pretty long time there, I identified as a rock climber. And then I got a case of reactive arthritis and my knees blew up and my body started shutting down and I couldn't climb anymore. In fact, I couldn't do anything physical for about 6 months. And I went through a real identity crisis. I was like, what the fuck? Who am I? If I can't be fit and strong and active, I don't know who I am. You know, and that happens to a lot of people in the creative space. Now, I really early on in my career kind of decided that I was going to keep the two things a bit separate, despite the fact that I love everything that I do and all that kind of stuff. And it's a tenet of my life that I pursue things that I love and that make me happy, right? But I realized early on, because of the up and down nature of this work, that if I related too closely to it, I would feel bad every time that I didn't have work, you know. But I hadn't considered how I could also apply that in other areas of my life. So the physical fitness thing was a real wake-up call for me.
I love this topic. Reason being that this is something that I'm working through at the moment, which is so it's wonderful to talk about it, especially with people that I love and trust. Hi, everybody. And also to share it with people who are listening, because I think talking about the way that you value yourself around people is something that we don't do particularly often. For example, I'm going through a phase of that when I meet new people or even talking to people that I know, I am wishing and hoping that they ask me what I do so that I can have value in myself. Wow. It's really interesting. And then what that actually does is that stops me from listening to what other people are saying to me, and it stops me from engaging in conversation that is outside of my job, because I'm sitting there going, ask me what I do so I can tell you that I'm valuable. It's a really interesting process that I'm working through. And what I'm finding really helpful, and if this is helpful to anybody else, is actually just to take a really low, good belly breath. And if you don't know how to do that, I'd encourage everybody just now to squeeze in through your belly and like your pelvic floor and to let it go. And that's where you get that lovely low, like these muscles are released and I'm feeling like I'm breathing. And that's what I'm having to do, to remind myself to do in the middle of conversations with people.
Wow.
To go, I'm going to take this moment to breathe, and I'm going to listen to you and stop wishing that you will ask me what I do with my life so that I can feel better about how I associate me and value, because a lot of my value lives within my work because it is so creative, and creativity is a lifeblood for me. But that's not all that I am. So it's finding ways to separate that by actually, just like you do in acting, if you're thinking about yourself, the scene dies. If you think about the person, it does.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah,
No,
if
you're so right.
Yeah, if you think about the person in front of you, you form connection, you form all of these things. And that's actually something that I'm working through at the moment.
Yeah. Wow, it's so interesting. I think something else that's really valuable to do is try and catch yourself framing
Yes.
yourself as an I am statement.
Yeah, yes.
You know, that's really, and that takes time, especially if it's really ingrained in you.
Yes.
And it is ingrained because we all do it. You know, I'm an engineer. I'm a plumber. I'm a this. I'm a that, right?
And
so,
people always ask you what you do.
yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly.
that's
But then
one
you
of the
say,
first
I
things.
am a.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People say,
Yeah.
what do you do? You go, oh, I'm a voiceover artist.
Yeah.
Right. So when I heard that interview with Sam, what I started doing is saying I do instead of I am.
Oh, interesting.
Right. I am Deanna. I am a human. I am 48 years old and I do voiceover. I do acting. I do photography. Right. And it felt super fucking weird for ages. And it still kind of does. The impulse is to say, I'm a voiceover talent and a photographer and da 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 da, da, right? And that's okay sometimes, right? But if I find myself putting too much stock in that, too much value in the I am statement, I immediately go back to I do.
Yeah. What I find interesting in that is that you've shifted that part of your language and how you speak about yourself. I'm shifting how I ask questions of other people at the moment. So rather than saying, what do you do? I'm saying, what's something in your life that you're enjoying at the moment? So they have an opportunity to say like a hobby or a friend or a family rather than job. Because
Nice.
do associates with job. Or like I was at a networking event last night that was talking about, one of the speakers was talking about, what are you lovingly letting go of in your life, and what are you courageously creating. Natalie Cutler-Welsh, she's an amazing business coach and and connector. She's a wonderful person, and that's what we did in our little break. You went around asking people like, what are you changing in your life at the moment? What's something new for you? And it was just a really interesting way to ask people questions.
I think that's absolutely precious. Like, can you imagine someone coming up to you and asking you those questions,
Yeah.
like not in that networking setting?
Yeah.
I love that. Like, I would feel, if someone came and asked that of me, like I would feel so seen and so heard, and like this person is genuinely interested in not just small talk, but like actually getting to know me as a human being, which is validating on a completely separate level than asking, oh, well, what do you do for work? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that could be a really, really valuable thing for all of us to take into our management of, mental health in this space, in terms of helping take care of other people as well and opening up conversations in a different way. You know, it's all well and good to talk about like anxiety and burnout and self-care and working your way through imposter syndrome and not identifying too closely with the thing that you do. That's excellent for us to work on individually. But as a collective, probably what we want to be doing is changing the conversation a bit more, right? And changing the way we engage with other people. Because working on yourself is also kind of isolating. You know, like in order to work on yourself, you have to do a bit of navel gazing. You have to like go inward, right? And that definitely cuts you off from the people around you. So I love that. I love that idea of working on opening conversations with people that don't revolve around what do you do, but like, who are you? What do you love? What do you spend your time doing when, you're not like part of the machine?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can definitely like apply the same type of thing to other areas of your life. Like, if people asked if they're married or if they have children or, you know what I mean? All of these things that one would say are like societal stepping stones. that people place a lot of value in their lot of personal value in. You could changing that whole conversation as well and just allowing humans to be humans. Oh gosh, if we could only live in a world where humans could be humans, man. Amazing.
You can also ask people, this was another thing we experimented with last night as well. What's your origin story? How did you get started? Yeah, honest, and as the person responding to that, you can change your origin story. Like, it could be, well, I moved here when I was this, and my parents did this, and I da. But it can be like, you can be like, when I was 23, this is what the speaker used, Natalie. When I was 23, I got on a plane by myself, and I came to New Zealand. Like, so you can change the way that you talk about how you feel about yourself to different people. And I thought that was really fun as well. Again, rather than, not listing the facts about yourself, but talking about the experience of you as a human being to get more, not get more value, to share more about yourself in a different way.
And what a wonderful way to help combat those imposter syndrome feelings is to getting down to who you actually are instead of just saying cookie cutter answers. Like you said, oh, well, I live in California and I am a voice actor and I am a this and I am a that. Gosh, what an amazing way to put value back into the person that you are. And what a wonderful way to just reframe your entire way of thinking. I think that's so beautiful. I love that.
It is such a beautiful process because I find even in my recent years, the practice of catching my imposter syndrome when it's talking to me has been really interesting. Like I'll be saying something and I can hear in the back of my head, like, are you sure that's true? Do you actually know that? I'll be talking about, something to do related to my work or, and I can hear this in the back of my head. And it's something, Deanna, you and I were talking about it a little while ago and going, it's the process of hating those thoughts that actually make them a whole heap worse.
Yes.
And being judgmental of those thoughts. And
yes.
We talked about that, Deanna, and you were like, actually what you could be doing is going, oh, yes, I hear you. I understand that this has been a fear in the past and that you've been worried about being wrong, but that's okay. I've got this. I'm all right. And it has been so helpful for me. So helpful.
Excellent. I'm so happy about that because I think that is the key to getting past all of those like unhelpful, really negative kind of thoughts that our brain throws at us. Our kind of response, and this is probably because of the whole, personal development, self-help kind of zeitgeist that everybody's experiencing, right? Right? We somehow build up this idea about ourselves that we shouldn't have these thoughts, that there's something wrong and broken about having these thoughts. We should just be positive and non-judgmental and la la la, fucking butterflies and fairies and bullshit. Right? Like, it's such rubbish, okay? Like I said earlier, it's our brain's job to protect us. Like, literally, it's there to make sure that we are okay, right? And so those thoughts that come up are really, really normal and natural, and they exist and they're there. And there's this whole concept of what you resist persists, right? Like, if there's an alarm going off and you ignore it, is that alarm going to get quieter or louder? It's going to fucking get louder, right? It's a part of you. If you ignore that alarm, it will make more noise and more noise and more noise. So the best thing to do is see it, witness it, but witness it in a non-shaming way. Witness it without shame attached to it. Go, oh, hey, I see you. I know you're scared, right? This is a really fucking scary thing, but we're okay. We're going to do it anyway, all right? No one's going to die. We're going to be good. Let's just have a go anyway, and we'll see what happens afterwards. And when you acknowledge that thing inside you, it quietens down really, really, really quickly. Yeah. And then the more you are able to do that, the more conversations you can have with your imposter syndrome, the more you can say, hello, little love, you okay there? I know it's scary, isn't it? But we'll be fine, right? The more of those conversations that you can have and followed up by more experiences of doing the thing even though you're scared, you really start to build that resilience muscle up. Right? Like, that's really where resilience comes in. Acting as in fear, but with and ignoring the alarm, that's not helpful.
No, it's what I once heard that called toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Just to ignore, the thing that is just that's being that little tick in the back of your the back of your brain, or whatever it is, the feelings that you're going through.
Yep.
You can't just be like, "Oh, I don't feel you feelings. Get out of here.
Yeah.
I am happy all the time."
Yeah.
That's because that's not real life. Nobody is happy all the time.
No.
Not even freaking Santa Claus, I bet, is
Yeah.
happy all the time. So
That whole,
you can't.
He's only allowed out one day a year. He's a sad guy. But I'm sorry. He's not always okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that toxic positivity concept, I am all over that shit. I agree with you entirely. Self-talk without also non-shaming, non-judgmental acceptance of whatever is underneath it, it doesn't work. It's just plastering fucking fake positivity on top of shit. It doesn't work.
One day it's going to crumble. Like all that plastering is just going to fall away one day, and it's all going to come crashing down.
Yeah.
And what I've found really interesting in that, because Dana's been so good in helping me with those couple of those programming things that I'm hearing and saying nice things to the chatter that happens, is actually what I've been able to identify is why that safety mechanism exists. Not that you have to try and delve into why things are happening for you. You can just say lovingly, like, "Oh, it's okay, mate. I hear you. It's all right." But it's been really interesting. And part of that discovery has been a part of going, "Oh, you used to say that to yourself because you were trying to protect yourself from people bullying you." That's what it was for. It was going, make sure this is correct, because if it's not correct, someone's going to be mean. And that's like 8-year-old Tessa.
Yeah.
And going, oh, hey, 8-year-old me. Oh, yeah, that was really scary when that was happening. That's okay. I'll give you a little cuddle and we can continue on, because big Tessa's got this now. And it's been such it's been such an interesting experience. It's lovely because those things do quieten down as soon as you give them just a little bit of care and a little bit of notice. It's marvelous.
This is the thing, because really what you're doing is caring for yourself. This for me is self-care, right? Yeah. This is what I call self-care. Not candles, not baths, not like, and if that's your thing, fucking awesome, right? Go for it. But for me, self-care is taking care of the internal stuff that goes on. And if those alarm bells are going off, they're not random. They're connected to something that's happened to you in your life. And like Tess said, you don't have to work out what that thing is. But the interesting thing is, when you do start paying attention, it'll show up anyway. You probably will just see it. But while you're suppressing it, right, you don't get to see the actual origins of it ever.
And that 8-year-old starts screaming inside you, because it's like, because they know how to throw a tantrum, or Nelly could 8-year-old me throw a tantrum. And it just is like, it will scream at you until you give it the attention it needs.
Yes.
So you got to talk to it and, make some peace with it.
Yeah.
Be nice to it. My goodness.
And how good does that feel to be nice to yourself?
So pleasant. Because I just got really excited about that, but it's just like it's a sense. It's not even like a sensation of, oh, I did a good thing. It's a sensation of release, which is really interesting. It's just a sensation of, is it?
Well, think about what it's like when someone's mean to you.
Yeah.
Someone else, not you, not yourself being mean to yourself, but someone else. When someone else is mean to you, it's painful. It hurts. When someone else sees you and acknowledges you and doesn't judge you and is kind to you when you're having a hard time, how does that feel?
Awful.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Well, no, other way around. When someone sees you and acknowledges you and is nice to you, how does that feel?
Oh, that feels wonderful.
That feels good, right? It feels shit when people are mean to you. It feels nice when they see you in all your faults and whatevers and they try and take care of you, right?
Yes.
So we get very, very, very good at being mean to ourselves.
Mm.
We really do. We just get used to it. We just get used to like having being mean to ourselves. So it actually takes a bit of effort to recognize that and then switch that around. And when we start being nicer to ourselves, the sense of relief is insane. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's really, really, really big,
I one thing that really changed my perspective about being kinder to myself in general, like years ago, was I heard someone say, talk to yourself like you would talk to somebody you love.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk to yourself, be nice. Say things to yourself like you would to someone who you love? Would you talk to your significant other this way? Would you talk to your best friend this way? Well, then why are you talking to yourself this way?
Yeah.
You are so important, and the way that you view yourself is so important. You are important, and the way that you talk to yourself, it sticks. It doesn't just go out of your brain. It stays there for a really long time. It doesn't just, come in and out. It's something that sticks. So if you're going to say the thing that sticks, be kind to yourself. Now, having said that, like, I feel like there's also like a reverse of that, like where you could be like, yeah, I could do whatever I want. I'm so nice to myself. Like, I have no consequences. I feel like that's the reverse of it. But
yeah, I agree.
You can't go that far. But
that's not being nice to yourself.
No, it's
That's
not.
being a fucking enabler, right? Like, that's not being nice to yourself. You wouldn't do that with your friends either. Like, someone that you really cared about, you wouldn't go, oh, no, you'll be fine. There's never any consequences for anything. Go for it. You're a good person. Woo!
Yeah.
Right? Like, never. You'd never speak to another person that way. You'd go,
not that you liked.
Listen.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I love you. I think that's going to go badly for you, right?
Yeah.
Honesty is not the same as being an asshole,
Yeah.
Yes.
right?
true.
So just don't be an asshole to yourself. If you can,
Yeah.
if you can help it, right? And that will help with imposter syndrome. It definitely will. If you're feeling imposter syndrome, if there's a part of your brain going, I don't belong here, I'm not good enough for whatever reason, then it's worth being nice to that part of you. It might be the 8-year-old version of you that got teased, or might be the 12-year-old version of you that saw something happen and decided that you didn't ever want that to happen to you, right? But now as a 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, however old you are, you don't have to have that drive you anymore. But if you're mean to that part of you, it'll just get louder, So I think being honest with yourself and also being nice to yourself is super, super important. Okay, so wow. There's lots and lots and lots to talk about here, and I feel like we could do like months and months and months of episodes on this kind of thing. So let's come back another time and talk more about mental health. And if you, our lovely potty listeners, have anything that you want to contribute to this, you should definitely let us know, right? Like, we want to hear your stories about imposter syndrome and burnout and self-care and work identity, and like, we didn't even touch on hustle culture today, and that's a really fucking big one, right? So we might do a whole episode on hustle culture. So we want you guys to let us know what your stories are around this kind of stuff. We really want to hear what you think. But before we go today, we are going to do sounds we can't make.
Nah.
Very exciting. What's our sound today, producer Jordan?
Today is the seagull lady.
Oh.
That's just Tessa warming up to get started. She's a seagull lady.
The seagull lady.
Do you know what? Hey, on seagulls, I found out yesterday that Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere seagulls sound really different.
Fuck off.
Oh,
They
crap.
do not.
Yeah. So I'm talking to an engineer. I did a voiceover the other day and they wanted seagull sounds in the background, right? And he's like, oh, can't use the Northern Hemisphere seagulls. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, they sound really different. And for a really long time, there weren't any like Southern Hemisphere seagull sounds in like audio libraries. Because like as an engineer, you can access audio libraries of all sorts of different sound effects and stuff, right? And he said it really turned things around when we could use Australian seagulls.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
I am so confused because, like, you just blew my mind. I just thought a seagull was a seagull. Like,
No,
I've been hearing
no.
Northern Hemisphere seagulls my whole life because
Yes.
I'm from the Northern Hemisphere.
I can
There
hear the
are
difference. I
other
know the
seagull
difference.
sounds?
Yeah,
I think I
like-
know the difference.
Northern Hemisphere seagulls do this like big high-pitched shrieky
High-pitched
thing.
shriek,
And
yes.
Southern Hemisphere seagulls do a warble with kind of a long ending on it.
So what are the
Uh-huh.
seagulls we're doing today?
I don't know.
That's it, isn't it? Let's find out. This is way harder than you think, by the way, doing this bloody
when is
sounds
it
we
not?
can't make bullshit. Fucking TikTok videos, got to open this, do that, can't
I-
download them. It's a pain in the ass.
It's tricky,
Every
right?
other sound we
really
can't
you.
make is good. You sent me some ones that were good, and I could actually edit them. This TikTok one, TikTok's annoying. You can't
Sorry.
download it and then like play around.
I
with it.
couldn't find another
And I've got
example of
open
that
and
sound.
close. Oh my goodness. Okay, here it is. Here it is. We're going to
all
do our very best here.
That's not a person. It can't be a person.
That's a person.
You ready?
Yeah.
I thought that was actual seagull. Oh, God.
All right,
I thought
that's
that was a seagull.
really
I didn't think
compressed,
that was
isn't
a
it?
person.
Sounds horrendous
Yeah.
to make. Like painful again.
I
This is a
don't think
painful
it.
sound again.
I don't think it's compressed. You couldn't. I'm so sorry. I just like went off into like
Cases.
near
I'm
the
enjoying
Netherlands.
Think out loud. Just think out loud for us today.
Because this is a podcast, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it can be compressed because with your chords in that configuration of really lengthy and really thin, you couldn't make it. Because if I go into high pitch and compress,
Oh, it all disappears.
it'll disappear.
Yeah,
It won't
right.
happen because we've got too much pressure. So I actually think it's really wide with really, really well placed nasality and
That's what I think.
tongue. That's what you
Right.
think as well? Yeah.
Yeah, like, and
Well-
definitely, like, I mean, like, pushing from your, to make that, you are
I'm-
pushing on your diaphragm.
I'm trying
You know?
to brace myself to figure out how it's going to work.
Okay,
I'm like
someone else
leaning
go.
on my
Do you
table.
want one more? And
Yeah.
I might be able to show you the.
Yes, show
You want to
us.
see you doing
Yeah.
it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I bet she's
All
super wide open mouth, like a seagull.
Oh, it's E'd. That makes sense. That's E position is good for
Yeah.
high pitch resonance. Yeah.
We're not making any sounds, but
No.
you have to see our faces. If you're watching this on YouTube,
Tessa just got herself into the position and then did nothing.
I wasn't prepared
Real
for this
high.
today.
So high it's inaudible.
Am I
Yeah.
going?
Yeah.
Is that
Dogs
what's
heard it.
Is it
Dogs
my
heard it.
turn? Is that what's happening?
I don't know.
okay,
You know,
yeah.
hang on,
We,
I've just
we
got-
volunteer you.
I've got my
Oh.
straws real quick. I'm just
I'm
going to try and
nervous.
find that high note. Okay.
Beautiful bubble sounds.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty close.
Fuck yeah, I feel
Yeah,
good
you
about
fucking
that.
smash.
Do that
Oh,
again.
God. I love it.
Hang on. We're going to get...
Quit
'cause
while
I-
you're ahead. Quit while you're ahead.
I think you've got
pretty
it.
Wow.
I did
That's
not
impressive.
think that was going to happen.
How'd you do it? How'd you do it? Do you have to brace? Is like
I-
holding onto the desk part of it?
Yes, it is. Because I'm bracing because I don't want accidental throat activation by
Yeah.
thinking I have to push the air through.
Yeah.
So I'm using bracing to activate my diaphragm, my abdominals, and my QL and all of that sort
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah.
Quadratus
lumbatus.
yeah, that one. To support so that I don't do anything through my neck. And then I'm finding my high pitch, which is what I use my straws for, if you heard that, so that I could find the right pitching and that so that I also didn't get constriction through my throat. And
Yeah.
then I tilted my head this way because it helped me think about getting the sound to hit my palate rather than going nasal. I think it's a palatal sound as opposed to a nasal sound.
Because it's sharp, right? And
It's
nasal
sharp,
gets
it's
a bit
not nasal.
soft.
Yes, that's what I thought as well. And also, I had to put my lips in that position so that the sound comes across the palate rather than like through the palate.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that's why
And
I
when
steered off
Tessa
into
says like
space a moment
that,
ago.
so you just said I had to put my mouth like that. What
Oh.
she did was like a big wide E, like
Yeah.
smiling, big wide E
Yeah.
shape with a dropped jaw.
Yeah, with my tongue tip behind my bottom row of teeth so I can just go like that
I
rather
don't
than
think I'd go that high.
Yeah, that's my
That-
problem.
that
You've
was-
got to have a high pitched voice. You
Yeah,
got
and
massive range for that.
I think you could get the same tone though in a lower range.
Oh, okay.
Like,
'Cause
let-
I've got a cold at the moment, right? So
Like-
I am
like
already
that.
super nasal, and I'm a bit husky.
Oh, yeah, it changes. Yeah, it does. It changes. It changes big time. You're right.
Has to be high, right?
Has to be high.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Imagine
want to
you're gonna
try.
have a go.
Yeah, you want to try?
Yeah, I want to try. I'm going to do the bracing technique.
Yo, mate, it helped. It really helped.
Oh, wait, hold on. I also need to back away from my microphone.
Yeah,
though,
y'all got
because
this.
It's about to get loud. Oh, it's so high. Hold on.
Oh, hang on. Oh, just because I think you were in the right spot. Can you H initiate your sound.
Like,
So rather than you know,
Oh,
I'll
that's
do that.
good.
You
Soft
understand what I mean?
onset, right?
Soft onset,
Because
'cause otherwise
otherwise
you're
what
gonna
you're
blow.
doing is a glottal onset, like a
Yes.
glottal closure onset. So your vocal folds are closing over the glottis, which is the space between your vocal folds.
Yeah.
And when we go, right, what we're doing is like doing a big open and close, right? So we're closing first and then we're letting the sound come out through our vocal folds. But when you do a soft H, a soft sound, what that does is mean your vocal folds aren't completely closed when you start to make the sound. It makes the onset softer.
It also means you'll get a better vibratory cycle because they're not going bang and trying to whack apart.
Nice.
So, Ashton, you were in the right spot, but we need more palatal travel with your resonance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the trick that you were doing because it is so high that if you
It's
don't
so
try
high.
to get the note before, like it's almost impossible to hear. So hold on.
Yeah.
This is
That's
not a
it.
quick
That's bang
sounds we
on.
can
That's so
make.
good. Can you change the
close.
shape of your mouth so you're going really like yeah. Can you do this with your face as well? What I'm asking Ashton to do is to really scrunch up her cheeks towards her eyeballs. Yeah, have a try with that. That's better. It's closer.
Northern Hemisphere seagull. Look at
Really
that.
Northern Hemisphere.
We're going to have to find a Southern Hemisphere one and do the next round. That's so interesting because I think that that sound actually felt completely safe for me.
Oh,
Same.
wow.
Not a problem.
I felt fine. I mean,
No
I don't
problem.
think mine was as good as Tessa's, but I still feel like it did not hurt at all.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I feel like there was like an ab workout
It
a
was
little
an ab
bit. You know?
workout. Yeah.
Are you
But
going to have a go,
how good
Jordan?
was the bracing, though? The bracing was so important for that. If
It
you're
helped.
not practiced at it, the bracing was really helpful.
Now, I'm not going to have a go, right?
Yeah, cool.
Because I have a cold and I have I have a voiceover to do today, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not up for putting myself in a potentially like kind of damaging space. And I know that because I'm already a bit fatigued and a bit weakened from being sick this week, that my body will use all sorts of compensatory things to get me to where my brain wants me to go. So
Yeah.
it's not safe for me to do that right now.
Yeah.
I might be able to make the sound, but I won't make it with the best support and the best functionality in place. So I'm not going to do it today. This is me taking care of myself, right?
Fabulous. I love that.
Yay.
Yeah. But Jordan.
Okay.
And then I'm going to try it again afterwards because I want to try and add in some of the colour that she's got inside of the seagull sound. So I'm excited.
I heard a lot of excuses there, Deanna. Very long-winded.
Off.
Very
Yeah,
long-winded
listen,
excuses.
I am very, very secure in my position to not take myself down this path right now.
All you
No
have to do
worries.
is
You're not
go.
going to get away with it with me. Sorry, but I'll do it. No worries. I'm understanding enough. Okay, so scrunch my face up.
Yeah. This sort of shape.
Hey, that was all right.
That was great. That was
For my
fantastic.
range, that was all right.
Yeah,
For
that
your
was on the
range,
way.
that was
For a
fantastic.
boy.
Yeah,
that-
seriously though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
True.
play it for us one more time, Jordan?
Yeah. I want to hear
Oh, man,
I want to
dude.
hear the. Oh, you're gonna go back to TikTok.
No.
Listen, man, you have one fucking job, okay?
Oh man, I gave Tessa a lot of shit about
You
this. Like,
did, man. Yeah.
She
That's
really
interesting.
plays with her projection level
She
as well, right?
does.
Like she
It's-
starts soft, it gets louder, and
We
then
leak
softens
in.
off again.
Yeah.
And they link to each other. So there's a real sense of that kind of legato flow.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
it's not a staccato thing. She's not going, eh, eh, eh.
Yeah.
That
It's,
was me.
Eh,
Yeah.
eh, 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 eh.
Fuck.
legato and staccato, or whatever you just
Yeah,
said.
yeah. So they are musical terms, right? Staccato, lots of people are familiar with staccato. You know what staccato means, Jordan? Stop, start.
probably should.
Hard stop starts, right? So if I'm talking in a staccato way, you hear all of the stops and starts, right? But if I'm speaking in a legato way, it's like there's a ribbon of sound and all the words are connected.
Okay.
Yeah. Staccato,
Beautiful.
legato. Great
Educated.
Full
words.
explanation.
Great words. Right, I'm going to give it one more whack, I think, because I want to try and get that legato nature that flows in and out of everything else. So I'm going to brace again because my low back's a little bit sore and I am just not planning to have like a back spasm in the middle of this. It is not worth it. Okay.
Bubble blowing time.
Bubble blowing time. Let's find that pitch.
Oh, you're doing it while you blow bubbles.
Yeah. Oh, I used my speaking voice. Hang on.
Sorry.
For people who are listening, I'd put everything into a position, and then as I used my speaking voice, it dropped me completely out of it. And because it's a new position to me, I got to reset it. So, no, that didn't feel right. It's a bit better. Oh, see, can you hear the compression in there now? It's gone really hoarse because I can't quite find that space. One more time, team. One more time. We can do this. We can do this.
You got this, Tess. I know you can do this.
Oh, we're getting raspy now.
Yeah.
I'll do one more and then I'll stop. No, it's gone.
Nah, gone.
It's gone.
Gone. So I must not have been doing it correctly, even though it felt okay. So because this is a really good thing. Anybody who's listening who is a vocal professional, if you start losing your high range in your vocal cords or in your pitch, something's gone wrong.
Yes. You're fatigued.
You're fatigued because you've either got a little bit of swelling, a muscle's gone in a direction that it doesn't like and it won't go back there. So high frequency loss in your range is a good indicator that something's gone a bit funny.
Yeah.
Just
That's why I'm not doing it today. Because
100%.
I know that I'm already lacking that high range because I've been sneezing a lot, haven't coughed very much, but I've sneezed like a fucking, I don't
Sneezy
know what, sneezy thing for like 3 days straight. Lots of sneezing. And I'm trying to be gentle, but it's definitely affected my voice.
Yeah.
Absolutely, without a doubt, you know. So you can give me as much shit as you want, Jordan.
We believe you. We all believe you. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
It's really important, really important, team, that we take care of our voice.
Yeah.
It's our instrument. And the only way to take care of it really well is to have a high degree of like awareness and really intimately be familiar with what it does and what it doesn't do. You know, I think that's really important. All right. On that note, great work, everybody, on Sounds We Can't Make. I think Tessa is a half a tick because she can do the sound, but she hasn't quite found a way to do the sound safely.
I'll work on that because I think what I did is I raised my larynx too high with compression as opposed to space. So I'm going to have to I'm going to have a little try with that because even though the larynx is high and I've compressed the pharynx, the back of the throat, there still has to be space. So I'm going to give that another go later.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Looking forward to hearing the progress.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today, everybody. That's the end of this episode of the Good Talkers podcast. We have adored having you with us. And we just want you to know that if you have any questions about VO or stories you want to share from like your booth or things about, like I said earlier, imposter syndrome or mental health or what it's like to be a VO and be isolated and, you know, how do you cope with all of these things? What are you doing to make sure that you've got the resilience that will allow you to have a long career? You know, we want to hear those things because obviously we have our own experiences, but this stuff's really personal because it's about your mind, right? And how you personally deal with all of the emotional stuff that comes with this kind of work. So we really want to hear your stories. You can get hold of us via email at thegoodtalkerspodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email, send us a voice note. We love that stuff. We love hearing your voices. You can follow us on all of the socials. We are The Good Talkers Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We are everywhere. And the TikTok thing's going really well at the moment, which is super exciting.
So good,
really,
right?
Really great. Really, really great. So that's it from us. Thank you so much for being here with us on the Good Talkers podcast. We love you heaps and we love having you with us. And yeah, we'll catch you again next time. Say goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Acha.